So here we go. The first activity I want to show you is 1, 2 for all. This is my go-to move. This is my favorite. I use this most of the time and it's foundational. Later we'll talk about combining these things. You'll most likely do this activity with your team. So let's talk about preparing before we actually go into the steps of the activity. First one, you want to prepare the question. I can't stress this enough. A good, clear question will set the stage for the activity. And then you'll want to think about the environment. So in terms of if you're doing this on Zoom or Teams or some other video conferencing that can do breakout rooms, you'll want to be familiar with setting up the breakout rooms and how you're going to put people in the breakout rooms, etc. If you're in a physical space, you want to get a room that's large enough. In this activity, you're going to form different groups and they're going to have brief conversations with each other. So you don't want a space too tight where then it's too noisy and it's too hard to hear what your teammate is saying in that discussion. So a good question and preparing the environment. And now here's the activity. Our first step on the left here is 1 minute of thinking silently. I always like to say, I'm going to set up the breakout room or I'm going to write the question on the whiteboard. Just think for yourselves for 1 minute silently. What is your answer to this question before I pair you up in the next step with somebody else to talk about it. So and this is the start of getting them to form their ideas, and then we put them in pairs. And you can give them between 2 to 4 minutes. If they're people that already know each other, you can go on the lower end of that. If they never met before, they'll probably want to say hi and introduce themselves. You want to give them a little bit more time. But what's important here is let's do 3 minutes together of just talking about with your partner. Now, if you're in Zoom and probably other video tools as well, you can have it randomized and you can pair people up randomly. I like that feature because sometimes, especially if it's a group of people that maybe don't get together too often, it'll put some of those people together and it'll really start a lot of discussion. So I like randomizing if possible. Then those groups of 2 become groups of 4. Bring the groups together and you got to give them more time because they got to talk about it, right? And then so there's more people to talk to. So you want to double the time you gave in the first round. And then you bring everybody back together and you just say, well, now we're going to capture everything on a whiteboard. It could be the Zoom whiteboard. It could be a mural, a Miro. It could be the conference room whiteboard. You hand out sticky notes or you give people markers and just write down, your answer to the question. Or if the last group in the groups of 4, if they come up with a similar idea, you could just write it once. And then optional at the end, and I'll go over this as well, is how do we move forward from here? Now that we have these answers, is there one answer we all agree to and we can move forward with it? So that's the optional vote and the action item that comes out of it. So I made a little example here, just basically generic. Like, what ideas would you have for a recommendation for XYZ? It could be a problem, a project, a situation, what have you. But this is where I mentioned earlier, you want to set up the question clearly. So you want to think about it before you bring people in and you think about it. Like, what is the question? And everybody understands the background, but what is the goal that we're trying to come out of here with an answer of or a direction? So what ideas do you recommend for XYZ? Again, 1 minute, just think silently. Okay, and then put people into pairs and then groups of 4. If you're in a larger crowd, you might want to do trios and then groups of 6 and maybe a group of 9, whatever. This is totally flexible. In music, they call it riff. You can riff some of this stuff based on your situation. Again, the Liberating Structures website I talked about earlier, you can go to that page. It's right here, and it'll go over what I'm explaining to you here, as well as giving ideas if you have to do anything different or want to do a little variation on a theme here. But after a few minutes, let's say this group comes up with 4 ideas and they put them all on the whiteboard here, like hire a consultant, let's stop this project, get more budget, or let's partner with another team. So these are all great. Now these are ideas on the whiteboard. Now let's figure out the direction the team wants to go in. Into this, again, if you're in a physical room, you can hand out little dot stickers or a pen and say, here we have 4 ideas. Let's say pick the 2 that you like. And if you really like an idea, you can use your 2 dots on one idea. So if I really like partnering with another team, I might put both of my votes on here. And then somebody else might want to split theirs across 2 different ones, etc. Every time I do this, most of the time, you will see one idea float to the top and it's a clear winner. Now, how many dots do you give out? Well, I like to base it on ideas, somewhere between a third or maybe a half. So in here I have 4 ideas. It's kind of small. So give it at least two votes. Tools like Mural and Miro will automate some of this for you. You tell them how many votes each person gets. You can set a timer. You know, if you're in a physical room, you'll do this in your head and say, okay, there's 4 ideas. If there's like 16 ideas, maybe 4 or 5 votes. So somewhere between a quarter and a half of what the votes are. But if you allow people to do multiple votes on the same item, you will see an idea or a solution come to the top. So that's 1, 2, 4, all, one of my favorites. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below and we'll talk about it.